Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come kick it with us. We're doing it every single week, spanning the wide world of women's football. This weekend, the ITC will be heading, to Bilbao for the UEFA Women's Champions League final. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen at ITC_pod on X. I am your host, Dino and as always, I am joined for this very special UEFA Women's Champions League preview by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
Feeling fantastic, buddy. Looking forward to what I think is almost certain to be a great final. It's going to be an intriguing final, no matter which way you slice it. I'm really looking forward to chopping it up with you and bringing in a little extra help to talk about the ins and outs of what we plan to see on Saturday.
That's absolutely right. Before we get to that help, though, obviously we will be locked in on the Champions League final this Saturday, as mentioned. That one's going down noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And then immediately after the match, your boys are going to go live on YouTube. So make sure you're following, make sure you're subscribed. But in the meantime, I'm going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with our special guest, Assile Toufaily.
See you guys on the other side.
Okay, I have the great pleasure of introducing a special guest who's here to help us break down the UEFA Women's Champions League final, women's football expert, PhD candidate, Forbes contributor, pretty much all-around elevator of the women's game in a lot of different ways, along a lot of different dimensions. Great friend of the pod. Just found out she's an actual friend of the pod, not a fake friend of the pod, a real friend of the pod, Assile Toufaily. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Dino. Hi, Grant. Thank you so much for having me. It's really my pleasure. As you said, I've been following the podcast for the last couple of weeks, months. I've seen it on Twitter out of nowhere, and I just decided to give it a go on YouTube, and I really enjoyed the episodes.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. We really appreciate
My
that.
pleasure.
And likewise, we very much admire your work as well.
100%. And yeah, if you can, Assile, please tell our audience about the work that you are doing. Very important stuff, obviously.
Yeah. If I'm gonna try to keep it short, I used to play in Lebanon. I played with the national team. I played with a few clubs, and throughout my career, even since I was 12, 13 years old, until I retired, and I retired very early. I retired at 22 because it wasn't professional in Lebanon. And it was taking all of my time without having nothing in return. I kept thinking about the reasons. Why are we this late? Why are we failing to develop? Why is the federation not giving us enough time, enough money, enough infrastructure, etc., etc.? And this led me into wanting to dedicate my professional work to football. So that's why after doing my bachelor's, I did a master's in sports management, and out of the blue, I got an opportunity to work on a PhD in sports sociology with Olympique Lyonnais. So it was kind of a comparative study between women's football in France and women's football in Lebanon. It was really interesting, especially that I got to do it with the under 14 to under 19. So it's really the academy at OL, and we all know how important the OL academy is. So it gave us this perspective in Lebanon that, okay, we have a very good base in terms of power of players formation or players creation, but then we reach a rough place at the age of 20, 21, where we're not professional, we're not getting paid, no one's watching us. If we get injured, we pay for the operation, so we retire. So this is the issue. Why is this happening? We really have to find a solution for this. So that's what I'm actually doing. And for the sports journalism part, it's always been a dream of mine to work in journalism. And ahead of the Women's World Cup last year, I got in touch with someone in Forbes, and we just worked on it. They told me that we don't have anyone covering Middle Eastern and French football, women's football, so let's work on it. So it was a great opportunity with Forbes. I'm very grateful for it, and I hope it will help me reach wider spaces in the future.
That's incredible. We're grateful for your work too, Asil. Thank you for everything that you're doing. Just massively important work.
Thank you.
Totally. Very much appreciate the background, and apologies for not also remembering that you are a former football player as well. So appreciate you checking me at the front door. That's all good. That kind of behavior is very much encouraged here at the ITC. As Grant likes to say, this is a learning podcast. So with that said, Champions League final, going down Saturday. Feels like took forever to get here. A little fun fact about the show. We probably kicked off maybe the first episode exploring the Champions League group stage. So like we've really kind of grown up with this season's Champions League. So very excited to reach this final. Barcelona, Lyon playing in Bilbao. I think there's some things that we could look at before we get into the meat of the actual preview. The first one is common opponents. So Grant, obviously both sides, 2 matches against Benfica, 2 matches against our beloved SK Braun. I think there's some takeaways from those matches. Grant, I want to go to you first, and then we'll go to Asil with regard to maybe things we might have been able to pick up, from those 4 matches.
Sure. Well, I obviously have to start with Lyon versus Braun in the group stage because I have to sneak any SK Braun reference into the show that I ever can. We have a lot of pals over in Norway, over in Bergen, who enjoy the program from our time, kind of falling in love with that club. Braun just acquitted themselves incredibly well against Lyon. They're obviously overmatched in terms of talent. I know you were watching those matches closely as well. Even in the first matchup between Lyon and Braun, Lyon ended up winning 3-1. Braun had that Justine Jalland goal. They pull it back late. And that kind of felt like it started a new wave of momentum for Braun. And then we get the classic in the snow in Bergen, Lyon 2, Braun 2. An incredible match. Signe Gaupset scores the equalizer near the death. And it felt like Braun had kind of figured out, okay, we're going to play that low block. We're going to try to counter where we can. What did you experience from the Lyon side in that match, Asil?
For the match at the Groupama, I was there. I was watching from the stadium, and I remember this specifically. I had a couple of friends who were watching their first match ever.
Wow.
And yeah, they're 2 new football or men's football fans, and I took them to the game. I remember as we were walking, this is one of the mistakes you can do as journalist or as someone who's been in the women's game for so long and who knows that, for example, Olympique Lyonnais is dominating for years. And as I was walking, I was like, I think, guys, we're gonna kind of have a show. We're gonna have a 5-1, 4-0, 6-0. This is what I had in mind because Bran have been great, but it's Olympique Lyonnais at the Groupama, so I thought it might end up being a show, I don't know, their games in the Arkema. We kick off the match, they were good, and surprisingly, Bran managed to keep possession. That's, in my opinion, this is in women's football. This is how you know if a team is working well in training or developing. I don't know, you can finish a match 2-1 against Lyon, just lose 2-1, and you just play in the box, not do anything. You can do this for 1 match, 2 match, 3 matches, but if this is your system, it shows that you're not improving or there's no thinking for the long-term future. So in this game, Bran managed to keep possession of the ball through the flanks in the middle, and I was really impressed. For the second match in the snow, I think these 2 matches had this special memory because for the second match, I was in Paris and I was taking the train. And in France you have sometimes you have very bad network service in the train station. So Lyon was up 2-0, and I was like, okay, easy game, it's gonna finish 2-0. I take the train, I lose signal, so I can't watch the rest of the game. I reach a place where there's a signal. I put my YouTube on, and it's 2-2, and Lindsay Horan had a red card. So I didn't really watch whatever happened in between. All I remember is that I watched the second goal, so the equalizer at the end.
Yeah,
it was shocking. And then I had a few discussions with friends, some of which are very big Olympique Lyonnais followers, and they told me that we can win against any club in the world, including Barca or PSG, but we struggle against low block teams.
Mm-hmm.
This is known for Olympique Lyonnais or even for the big teams because they like to keep possession. They like to play from, I don't know, Danielle van de Donk takes the ball and she tries to dive in, and then you can just find a block of 10 players stopping her. So I think this helped Olympique Lyonnais try to work on something to prevent that these matches happen again. If a team plays a low block against you, you have to know how to find a solution. Unfortunately, I don't want to get into details, but against FC Fleury in the semi-final of Coupe de France, Fleury played a low block. OL lost, and Fleury reached the final of Coupe de France. So it shows that Olympique Lyonnais struggle when they play against low block teams, which is for Olympique Lyonnais fans, it's kind of relief because Barca likes to keep possession, so it's not gonna be the case on Saturday.
I'd be very surprised if Geraldes implements the low block for Barcelona for sure. That's an incredible insight, though.
So I want to shift gears here real quick to current form, where these two teams are at, what kind of shape they're in heading into the final. So we've talked a lot about it on the show with regard to like maybe the lack of competitiveness in Liga F, but even still, Barcelona 6 straight wins heading into the Champions League final. They still have a couple Liga F matches left on the docket, including a massive 2-0 win at Stamford Bridge to reach the final to kind of avenge the sort of shocking loss to Chelsea the week prior at home. And then on the Lyon side, since their 1-1 draw to PSG that we talked a lot about on the show, they've won 12 straight, not counting the Bordeaux match where I didn't recognize, I don't think, a single player in that Lyon lineup. They've won 12 straight, including 3 over PSG. And I think the reason that's interesting, the 3 wins over PSG in particular, in the final and the 2 Champions League semis, was we kind of had the feeling that maybe PSG was doing more than knocking on the door. I don't know, maybe we kind of got excited about maybe a little bit more parity in France. But I think Lyon kind of like learned from that draw as well, and was able to basically take PSG out 3 straight times in pretty impressive fashion. So Asil, I want to go back to you real quick. What was your read on sort of like the Lyon PSG kind of like storylines that kind of kept clashing into each other this season, and then obviously culminating in last week's big win in the final?
Yeah, but just for your information, for the Bordeaux match, the starting 11 were the players I spent 6 months with at the academy. So they were the players I was observing for the PhD. And when I saw them starting this in the match, like the 11 players were from the academy. It shows how important the academy work at Olympique Lyonnais is. So just wanted to throw this out because it was really a daring choice from Bonpastor. She knows that the league is kind of sealed. She reached the playoffs and she wanted to give these girls a chance. So it was amazing to see.
Awesome.
For the OL match, I think you can notice that fans were fed up from watching the same 2 teams compete. Because at the semi-final match, I think we had a record of 37k people. I don't really have the number anymore, 39. And then at the final last week, we were 15k. So imagine why? Because you literally played against PSG 6 times this season.
Yeah.
And just kind of a repetitive scenario. Okay, the match at the Champions League was amazing with Lyon's comeback. But last week's match in the Arkema, I think it was the needed exercise for OL to play in the final, in the Champions League final. And this is, if we're going to talk later about Barca's win in the weekend, I think this is where OL kind of have a 10% advantage because they're still on a high level. They're playing high intensity games. They've played Stade de Reims was low intensity, but they played PSG, then they played Reims, then they played PSG again. So they were kind of playing on the very high level, and it might be helping them in the final. I don't want to talk a lot about this point. If I want to focus on one particular player who really impressed me in the PSG game, and she's been on a great run this season. Her first or second seasons at the OL were kind of bumpy. It's Danielle van de Donk, who came from Arsenal. She struggled at the beginning to find this her tempo, her rhythm, and against PSG, she won the Player of the Match award. This doesn't really happen a lot in France. In France, it usually always goes to the top scorer or the goal-scoring players in the match. Danielle won it. And when you watch it from the stadium, it's not like when you watch it on TV because you can focus on the players' movements and players' decisions. She was literally everywhere. She played at the first half as a box-to-box 8, which is her position. The second half, Damaris got injured, so Danielle came back to the 6th position. And I was really impressed. No one passed her. And we were talking about PSG midfield, so it's Gras Gayoro, so it's very high level physically. And Danielle played one of her best matches in her career. So I think she might be one of the key players in the OL squad.
That's fantastic, and I got to say, it's a funny perspective to hear that maybe there's some fatigue over there from watching those two club teams play. Because Dino and I, like from our perspective, they could play a season of PSG versus Lyon, and I think Dino and I would be on here talking about every single match. But I can see like when you're in it and you're like, okay, these two teams every single time. It's funny to think that people are like, all right, enough of this already. I got to ask, in your journalistic capacity, do we know will Damaris be available for the final?
She had a press conference 2 days ago. She said that she's better because her injury wasn't really football-based injuries. It wasn't anything muscular. It was rather on her face. She got a bump on her face, so she
Gotcha.
should be okay. We don't have any news about Diani, Khadija Diani.
Yeah.
It looks like it's a muscle injury, so this
Oh
can be
boy.
worrying. But we have no information on this so far.
All right, so that's something we'll keep an eye on.
Yeah.
I want to fast forward a little bit to the keys to the game here. So, Asil, you mentioned Danielle Van de Donk. Obviously, she has the majestic ball to Cascarino to
Yeah,
open up the
yeah.
scoring. Cascarino definitely rounding into form as well. She looks just awesome. The unique attacking ability that she brings doesn't feel like Lyon have a player exactly like her, just like a lot of different types of attacking players. So that's exciting to see. But Grant, I wanted to kind of kick to you. I want to talk some keys to the game. So obviously this is a old school hacky American radio cliche trope, whatever you want to call it. But we have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
Basically just kind of like zooming in on what do we think for each team is something that could kind of unlock a winning performance. So Grant, I'll go to you first. What do you think keys to the game for Barcelona?
When I'm thinking about Barcelona, and Asil, you alluded to it earlier, I think Barcelona's transition defense is going to be really important here. We've seen them play matches where they allowed PSG to have more of the ball. Dino and I talked about it. Like we were a little surprised, like that. I think one of the PSG Lyon matches ended with PSG having 60% of the ball, and then they would just attack on the counter. And even with PSG having more of the ball, Lyon ended up with more shots on target, and obviously the victory. So I'm going to be very interested to see, can Barcelona kind of keep enough players back if Ingrid Engen is in the lineup, Fridolina Rolfo, how they're going to be able to cope when Lyon does get possession back and they start racing toward the goal with all of their world-class players.
I totally agree with you, Grant. I've written this note and I've linked this particular key variant or ingredient to the game to one player. I love Delphine. I know that when she has the ball at her feet, she can just produce magic. It's really impressive. But I think
Yeah.
in this match in Saturday, especially if Ingrid is playing, and when you have Ingrid with Paredes in the middle or as two center backs, they're kind of slow. So you have two slow defenders, center backs, and in Lyon you have Melchi Dumornay, who's been on fire
Let's
since
go.
she came back from injury in March. She's literally unstoppable. If you want to put Tabita Shawinga from PSG on the side, she's the second fastest player actually in France. So I'm really interested in this kind of duel between the two center backs and Dumornay because, as you said, if Danielle Van de Donk manages to find Dumornay deep behind the defenders when Barca loses possession, she can be really dangerous. OL doesn't care about possession as much as Barca. They can have 30% possession. If they manage to score 2 goals, they're on the safe side. This is what happened in Torino 2022. The first 30 minutes, they were up 3-0, match over. So I think they're going to try to work on finding the weak points in the Barca defense.
Awesome.
I'm glad you brought up Dumornay because obviously we saw Barcelona struggle with Chelsea's Myra Ramirez. And I feel like there's some similarities in those player types, Dumornay and Ramirez. Big, fast, physical, great skills, very creative. So I did wonder if Bon Pastor and the kind of like the Lyon attack would maybe look to that Ramirez performance and see if Dumornay could kind of play that role a little bit, playing off of, Delphine on the other side, or just kind of making that a two-player attack. And I think we've also seen Paredes and Ingrid Engen also struggle with those physical matchups.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a traditional 4-3-3 for Olympique Lyonnais. I'm in Lebanon now. I'm not in France, so I wasn't able to attend the trainings live in Lyon. So I don't really know if Ada Hegerberg will play as a starter, but I really doubt it. She's
Mm.
still recovering. She's in the squad. She's been playing 20, 25 minutes, but I don't think she's gonna start. So I think it's gonna be a first half where Dumornay will be trying to they'll be trying to find Dumornay deep with the use of Cascarino on one side and Gianni on the second side.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe in the second half, it will be kind of a redo match to what happened 2022 with Selma Bassa's crosses to Ada Hegerberg. Because when you have Ada and then you have any other defender in the world, you can't reach her when she goes up. So
Yeah.
that's the power of Olympique Lyonnais is that they have a lot of styles. Barca, if you manage to stop them in the midfield, you can kill them.
Yep.
Olympique Lyonnais can play long, can play deep, can play on the flank. It's really impressive.
That is such a great point, Asil. And, we had our guy, Cameron
Mm.
Pope. He does commentary for the DAZN network, usually broadcast over here in the States. And, after that Braun match where Braun kept it really close, had the close 2-1 loss against Barcelona, we were surprised. We thought we were being American sports radio hacks by asking them, did Braun figure something out? Did they provide a blueprint for Barcelona? And we were very pleased to hear somebody who knows what they're talking about, like Cam, say, yeah, maybe kind of. Because to your point, it's not to say that Barcelona doesn't have a plan B, because usually plan A through L is just have way better players than everybody else. But you can frustrate them when you don't let them take shots from
Yeah.
right around the 18. So I think that's going to be very interesting to see for sure.
Yeah, if I may just add, on
Yeah.
the men's side, men's football, I'm a very big Real Madrid fan. And whenever Real Madrid used to
Okay.
face Barca back when Barca had the dream team of Guardiola with Xavi, Iniesta, Messi, the sentence
Oh,
I
yeah.
used to use the most was that I don't really care if Barca has 90 or 95% possession. In the end, Real Madrid won. And people used to say, but
Yeah.
yeah, but Barca produced a miracle. They were so entertaining. We enjoyed the match. Yeah, but you didn't get the victory because Real
Right.
managed to absorb your possession and then play on the flanks. So this is kind of recurrent with Barca. It's kind of what happened with Chelsea in the first match.
Mm-hmm.
Barca had control throughout the match, and Chelsea ended up winning. So this might be one of the tricky spots where Barca can fall in.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think one of my secret keys or side keys to the game in the midfield for Barcelona. So if you look at Aitana, Patri, and maybe Kira
Yeah.
Walsh, who's sometimes a little bit deeper, that could potentially be an advantage for Barcelona. But obviously, to your earlier point, Van de Donk's been playing so well. Considering what we've seen Lyon do defensively, I could see a scenario where Barcelona maybe need some magic from maybe like the edge of the 18 or a little bit outside the 18, leaning on some of those like explosive players, because we've just kind of seen Lyon shut things down
Mm.
defensively and just kind of be happy saying, all right, we're going to attack with our three attacking players and maybe one of the midfielders, Damaris or Van de Donk or whatever, or Basha. But for the most part, we're going to be a little bit conservative
Yeah.
defensively. But I did have fun thinking through, okay, does Barcelona need something from distance to be able to beat Lyon?
I think, yeah, but if I have to choose, we were talking about the key places in the field to exploit. If I'm gonna say, I think, as you said, Barca has the advantage in the midfield, but I think that we have one matchup who's gonna control everything, which might lead to these chances created, which is the Aitana against Damaris, because they're former teammates. They used to play together in Barca, etc., etc. But Aitana is still one of the very rare number 10 playmakers in midfield. So she really plays up front, and you have Keira, and the third one who's kind of changing all the time. It's usually Patri lately. And then on the other side, you have Danielle and Horan, and then you have Damaris behind them. So I really think that if Barca fails to play from the middle like they love to, and if Aitana finds it difficult to play against Damaris, they're gonna go wide. And when you go wide, it can be really dangerous if Caroline Graham Hansen is in a good mood.
Yeah.
If she's able to play the way she plays and the 1v1 and just crossing, it can be dangerous. Yeah.
For sure. And we talk about it a lot too, where There are so many great players for Barcelona. It's funny, we're multiple minutes into this episode. Thank you for being the first one to bring up Caroline Graham Hansen, because she's she's very clearly one of maybe at worst one of the 10 best players in the world. I think you can make a clear argument for it. And like you said, if she's playing well, then it just creates a whole other level for Barcelona that can be tough to stop. But yeah, I love the point about the midfield battle really kind of dictating who wins this game.
Asil, do you feel like, kind of like up the flanks, CGH on one side, maybe Badiola on the other, we're not sure what kind of lineup they're going to have, but do you think that could be a place where Barcelona might have an advantage?
It's not a matter of advantage, but I think it might be their only solution, because 2 weeks ago, I've watched the 2022 final again. I was working on a piece for Forbes, and I was really shocked because back then they used to have also a top Alexia Putellas, who's kind of struggling now, and I was kind of shocked at how Barca failed to play the through balls they used to play, where you can, I don't know, just try to go between two defenders to find a player, have a 1-2, etc., etc. And it made me wonder that the way they scored their goal was from a cross, and then Putellas was there to score it. So if OL manages to stop them in the midfield, and when you talk about OL, they're very physical on the midfield. This is something that Barca doesn't have as much. Lindsay Horan, she can really hit a truck and she can move it. She's if I'm gonna put my journalist side aside, she's my favorite player. I used to play like her. I used to play in her position. I love how she plays, and I'm impressed by how physically tough she is. When you have her, when you have Van de Donk who's running everywhere, when you have Damaris to intercept, Barca might have to go through the wings. And if Hansen is fit and she's ready, and I don't know, who do you think will play on the other side? Patry?
I would think so, right? She's been in really good form lately.
And if you have Patry on the other side, it's also going to be interesting to see if Patry can play against someone like Carpenter, who's defensively very good. Ellie Carpenter might not give you the best game of her life offensively, but defensively, she's gonna be present at every single ball. In these matches, it's really hard to predict because it's 10 duels within the field. So each player has to defeat the other. This is something my coach used to tell us, that if you want to win the match, you have to win every single matchup on the field, and then you can win it. So you have this on the side. On the other side, you have Selma Basha against Caroline Graham Hansen. You have Damaris against Aitana. You have Gianni in the back against Batye. So it's just a matter of high-profile one-on-ones.
Awesome one-on-ones, like every footballer's dream one-on-ones. And I'm glad you bring up Ellie Carpenter, because there was part of my keys, and you mentioned Diani might be a little hampered by an injury potentially. And I want to ask you this, just kind of like as a footballer. So let's say Diani is not 100% herself. Is it a reasonable strategy to then run Carpenter up the flanks, use her speed even more to kind of try to make up for that? Or do you think that leaves them too vulnerable in the back?
What's certain is that they might be vulnerable in the back, but they can count on the midfielders to cover, which happened a lot in the PSG game because Danielle was always covering Carpenter's side. Carpenter, last time we've had an interview with Sonia Bonpastor, she told us that in the last 3 years, she's the player who developed the most offensively in OL. Because when you talk about European football, and you bring someone from Australia or someone from the States where it's very tough and very long balls, it takes time for the player to adapt to the new football. And she was talking about how impressive Ellie Carpenter was. But I think if Gianni isn't fully fit, I don't think Sonia will even start with her.
That makes sense. Which actually leads, if I could ask one more follow-up. Assile Toufaily, you have been named Lyon manager for this match. If Diani cannot go, who do you play instead of her?
I play Delphine on the side, which is her favorite side, and she's been forced to play on so she plays on the right, but she's playing on the left this season because Gianni is on the right. And I play Amel Majri on the left. Personally, my having Salma Basha in the back and Majri in front of her for me, it's a joy to watch. They're very technical players, amazing technically players.
Yeah.
When they have the ball at their feet, they're just a joy to watch.
So I have a very technical
Yeah.
question. What makes Basha so awesome?
If I have the question, I would have tried to, I don't know, apply it here in Lebanon, try to develop the sport here. They're incredible. A few days ago, I worked on a reel, Instagram reel on TikTok for my page because I try to, as I told you, women's football in the Middle East is growing, but very slowly. So I'm just trying to approach the game from the fans, and I'm trying to use these reels to introduce the players and the teams. And I was doing a research on the history of Barca, and I learned that it was only in 2015 that they started believing in the La Masia players or the academy players and using this tiki-taka style of play because before that they used to try to sign whatever good player was available.
Mhm.
I think it's just what like exactly what's happening with the men's side. They're technically so good, and they've been playing with each other for so long now that becomes very easy for them. Okay,
Yep.
I know Lyon have, I don't know, Wendy Renard have been playing with Amel Majri for 10 years now, but I don't know
Yeah.
why it's different. It also has to do with the fact that in Spain you have this focus on the technical ingredient of the game. In France, it's very physical. They focus on how physical a player is. If she can make five, six sprints in a row. In Spain, it's how good your control is, how accurate your pass is, etc., etc. So
Hmm.
it's different from the way they build the player up.
Quick follow up. You mentioned Instagram Reels and TikTok. Where can we find you on those platforms? What are your
It's
handles?
I forgot. It's Asil underscore T10.
Because we follow you
Yeah.
on Twitter. Obviously, I am a fool for not following you on Instagram or TikTok yet. So I will make sure I correct that. We'll make sure we point people in those directions.
I can also send you the podcast, which is it's just an Instagram page now since I stopped the podcast, just an Instagram page where I cover mainly European women's football and Arab women's football. So for those interested in Middle Eastern football, you can find some interesting info there.
All right, outstanding.
Let's go. Elevating the game.
Yeah.
Love it. Let's switch gears to Lyon and their keys.
I'm going to give a real basic key here. Take more shots than Barcelona. I
I
alluded
love it.
to it earlier. They were okay with giving PSG a little more possession, but still winning the shots and the shots on target battle. We talked about those interesting matchups, especially in the midfield. Is Barcelona going to try to control the pace of the game? Lyon's defense is going to have to try to push them back to not let them shoot within range. I think if you're Lyon, Asil, you pointed to it. Try to get the ball into Dumornay and just let her get as many shots on goal as possible, and try to beat Katakoi as often as you can, because sometimes it takes a lot to beat Koi, I think.
I agree with Grant, and I said it before. I think it's not a matter of putting your ego aside, but in some of the matches, you have to accept the fact that the other team will have possession. So you just have to be realistic. Lyon has to make sure to defend 100%, not let any ball pass through, and eventually on the counters, they can create incredible danger with the three up top. So I think for once, this is what I thought in 2022, and Lyon ended up having being more dangerous. But I think for this match, with the current form of FC Barcelona, I think Lyon will try to maintain or absorb the hype of Barca on the ball and try to play on the counters.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That was also one of my keys is just kind of getting out on the break because I think we've seen Lyon, what they were doing to PSG last week was really interesting with regard to D&E spending more time kind of like in a defensive spot. Melchi Dumornay as well. Like it always seemed like they had like one of their key attacking players helping out on
Yeah.
defense, and not because it was like an emergency situation, just because it like really switched it up and gave PSG like a lot to think about. So I think if they want to, the way you described it, Asil, like absorb all of that possession and then just say, hey, like we have clinical, accurate passers that can get the ball upfield. Maybe we just kind of play this style and we say, hey, we like our chances with Cascarino or Emel Majri or Dumornay, like really focusing in and attacking maybe those two center backs, Paredes and Ingrid Engen.
Yeah, I think if I can add also one point, I'm working on a piece now. I'm still having difficulty in finding data because you can't always find it.
Mhm.
But I think the reason why I started the piece is that I think this season is the season Olympique Lyonnais scored the less during these last 10 years in set pieces and corners. I remember 2 years ago they were scoring on almost every corner with Renard, Horan, and Gilles, and Mbok, Damaris too. So I think
Yeah.
maybe they can get lucky again and just on one of the set pieces, one of the corners, when you have Wendy Renard's 1.87 meters, when you have Gilles or Mbok, I don't know who's starting, when you have Damaris, maybe you can just try to steal a goal from the corner, especially that Barca, you don't really have the tall players.
In the group stage of the Champions League, it kind of felt like the first 8 minutes, Lyon was scoring one
Yeah.
way or the other. Like they kind of had that tactical approach of like, let's start fast. Let's see if we can get one on the board before everybody has even kind of breaking a full sweat.
Yeah.
And I like you bring up the set pieces, Asil, because Dino and I have talked about it. There have been multiple. I feel like DNE has scored multiple goals playing the short corner. And then, essentially DNE is like runs right to the intersection of the box, and then she's just firing shots. If Barcelona is almost preparing for that, now you wonder, are you running Haran in there? Are you running Damaris in there to try to head the ball over to maybe give Barca a different look than maybe they expected?
You have one of the best corner takers in the world, actually, which is Salma Basha. And then you can literally, I don't know,
Yes.
you can call them the four twin towers with the four in the middle. I swear, whenever I used to watch, I have this thing when I go watch in the Groupama. Whenever there's a corner, I just take my phone to try to capture it, because I know there's a huge probability that
Awesome.
Wendy Renard will just fly in and score it. So this might also be a
Yep.
very important key for Lyon.
Great point. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back and talk a little key matchups, and we will be right back.
Again, Asil, not just to take you behind the curtain, we were just talking about how much we appreciate you lending your credibility as a footballer and a real journalist to our show. And we were joking that we're just a couple of dudes watching this over in America. And like between you and Cam, it's funny to us that like real professionals are coming on the show and just sounding great. So again, sorry, not to like heap you with a bunch of praise, but like, thank you so much for joining us. We're really enjoying this.
Thank you guys so much.
Very cool. All right, let's get to them keys. Let's see. I want to go to you first. We kind of talked a lot about things from the Barcelona standpoint. You're obviously much closer to what's happening with Lyon. So what's the first matchup that you're going to lock in on at kickoff? Where your eyes going to go as soon as the ball starts rolling?
I'm gonna repeat myself, and I've been repeating for myself for the past 2 weeks. But Bonmati and Damaris. I swear, if Damaris is listening to me now, I think I'm gonna just put the pressure on her or panic her. But I really believe when you watch Bonmati, you say like she's literally from another planet. She's been unbelievable. The way she controls the tempo, she controls the rhythm, she finds the players in the blind spots. It's impressive. We've always talked about how efficient Alexia Putellas is for Barca, but what Bonmati is bringing is on another level. So I really want to see on kickoff, if Damaris is playing as the number 6 in midfield, I want to see how she's going to manage to, I think, kind of prevent Bonmati from touching the ball as far as possible or as much as possible. Like whenever she sees that maybe someone is trying to find Bonmati, just try to pressure her, and okay, she can take a pass and play it back, but she's not allowed to turn and have a straight look on the field. So I'm repeating myself, but I'm really excited to see how Damaris is able to stop Bonmati. She's one of the key players, or I like to call her one of the key soldiers in Lyon. She's one of the most underrated. They always look at the goal scorer or at Ada Hegerberg or Wendy Renard, but Damaris has been one of the key players for Lyon's success in these 3 years or 4 years. So I want to see how she can adapt in such a game where she's playing against the number 1 in the world.
Yeah, totally agree. I actually had jotted in my notes too. I felt like we saw what an A+ game from Bonmati looks like in that second leg of the semifinal versus Chelsea. And Bonmati just bossed the entire game. I felt like if Damaris can take instead of getting an A-plus Bonmati game, if we can get a B game out of Bonmati, now you can almost like play them level every other spot in the field. Just totally agree with you there.
Grant, key matchup that you're going to be locked in on?
I'm going to go with, I referenced it earlier, talked about Diani and Carpenter on the right. I'm going to be really interested to see how Rolfo and Engen deal with that. And Asil, you touched on it too. You add Dumornay into that mix. Like if you're going to have the speed and the strength of Carpenter and the skill of Diani, could they possibly overwhelm Rolfo and Engen on those breaks? If they're able to do just enough and get it past Katakoi, then I think we might be looking at a Lyon victory.
Actually, I'm just thinking about something now. It will be interesting to see this because I think defensively, Lyon are gonna kind of, I'm not gonna say struggle, but if you have, I don't know, if you have a cup, you're gonna try to balance it between offense and defense. I think Lyon will put a lot of effort on the defense. So while Barca will put a lot on offense if they want to keep possession, and we know that the team who has the possession, it's the other team who runs around him. So I think that what's key for Lyon is to be as efficient as possible. You can't enjoy wasting 4, 5, 6 balls against Katako because eventually Barca can score one goal and it's game over. So I think, as Grant said, I'm really eager to see how Carpenter can help. But if I have to choose, I don't choose Carpenter. I choose Selma Basha. I think in such matches, I go blindly with Selma Basha over anyone on the field when it comes to just being, I don't know, just being a Formula One car who's running everywhere on the field, just trying to take possession, just trying to. She's very aggressive. In the last game against PSG, she was literally just throwing herself on the defender to make sure she passes. So that might be interesting because she's the player who runs the most at Lyon with Horan. So she can be that key player who can go up the field whenever Lyon regain possession.
Same page with regard to Basha. Perfect description that we wholeheartedly agree with. I think the key matchup that I'm interested in is kind of like the Kira Walsh, Van de Donk, Horan matchup. Because I want to say that Kira Walsh, you don't notice her a lot in these big Barcelona matches, which is sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad thing. I think this is the kind of match where we're going to have to see her win these battles. And to your very early point in the show, Asil, about maybe Lyon being hardened in this final, having kind of gone through a real rough road these last 3-4 weeks, very, very competitive matches, very emotional, high stakes matches. I'm going to be interested to see if Kira Walsh is going to be up at the level, if she's got like Van de Donk, maybe Basha coming in from one side, Lindsay Horan, and just sort of like things getting a little bit messy when Lyon do want to push forward. Just curious to see what Walsh is going to look like and if she's going to be able to hold up, because it's not going to be the whole game, but for very intense bursts of the match, it's going to be like a lion's den there. So that's going to be one matchup that I'm really going to be keyed in on.
Especially that when you look, as you just said, if you want to take Damaris, she's played since, since March, 5, 6, 7, 8 very high level matchups in midfield because once she had to face, Gayoro, and then she had to face someone in the Champions League. So it's very high risk or high intensity duels in the midfield. And then I know that DA Ahkema is not the best league in Europe, but the level currently in DA Ahkema is better than Liga F. So when you have Barca winning 8-7-9-0, it means that your defense is not doing anything throughout the game. You're just attacking. So maybe Keira is not really put in these situations. Some people will disagree. They will tell me that, but a player knows what to do on the field. I know, I agree. But when you're playing on this level for 4, 6, 8 months, and then out of a sudden you have to give it your all defensively, I'm not saying offensively, it might get tricky for Barca.
Great point.
Yeah.
I am mandated to always just mention, and you got to trust Kira Walsh as a former Manchester City Football Club player. You hurt my heart a little bit, Asil, when you talk about Real Madrid. We'll keep the men's football where it is. I'm tired of playing you guys in the Champions League. But, I digress. Kira Walsh, she has the toughness, but you're totally right. Sometimes if you're not super sharpened by really tough matchups going into a final like this, you wonder if she'll be able to kind of click it back into gear.
Definitely something we're going to be locked in on. All right, now it's time We're in extra time now. We're going to make some predictions. I'll go first just to kind of ease the pressure, because I could feel the tension kind of bubbling here as we get to the 1 hour mark of the pod. Asil, apologies, but I have to go 2-1 Barcelona. I feel like this is going to be the kind of match, maybe like 1-1 at halftime. And then I just get the feeling, this is something that we've seen all season from this Barcelona side, like the ability to generate like real magic, sometimes from distance or from, just creativity or wizardry, whatever you want to think about it. And I do think ultimately we see a totally 50-50 type match that is just flipped on one moment of brilliance from either a Naitana or a CGH or a Pariuela, like just one of those wizards over in Barcelona, I think ends up becoming the difference in this one. So my official prediction, 2-1 Barcelona.
I'll go next. We'll save the footballer's prediction for the end, obviously the main event. I'm going to go the other way, Dino. I'm going to say I think the first half is going to be nervy. I think we see this a lot in cup finals. I'm going to go with 1-0 Lyon. And I think Sonia Bonpastor is going to look a lot at that first leg of the Chelsea-Barcelona semifinal. And I think we're going to get a very similar result where I think Lyon is going to absorb that pressure, to Asil's earlier points. And I'm going to give the goal to Cascarino. Moment of brilliance sometime in the second half. I'm getting real specific with this prediction. And I don't mean to say like, oh, weird stuff happens in cup finals, because Lyon winning the Champions League is not a weird outcome. It's happened many times before. But against this super team, I think people are going to be surprised. So I know I've said in past podcasts, I'm not making a business out of betting against Barcelona. I'm going to do it here. I just think Lyon has the talent to do it.
Asil?
Now it's my turn. The problem is, I think I'm the worst person ever when it comes to predictions. And I think that the 2022 Torino final is the ultimate proof, because I said it's going to be a tight game, like literally a tight game. And eventually in the first 25-30 minutes, Lyon were 3-0 up. So it wasn't a tactical game as I thought it would be. But I think for this match, because in 2022, maybe Barca had a few flaws, and maybe OL had a few flaws as well. But I think now they've had this maturity from both sides. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be a tight tactical game. I hope I'm mistaken. I like it when it's open play football. And I think it's going to be a 2-1, but after extra time. So it's gonna be a long match. That's
spicy.
That's what I think. And I think because of the fact that French football is more physical, and you have there's an expression here in France. They say that you have juice in your legs. So like you don't really just have blood; you have juice. So you can keep playing for 120 minutes. So I think this might help Lyon, because if you bring out the bench, Vicky Béchou and all the others, they can help you continue throughout the 120 minutes. That's my prediction. I think it's gonna be a fun match to watch, but I think it's gonna be 2-1 in extra time. I'm not gonna go with the scorers because it'll be complicated.
That's totally fair.
Fair enough. 2-1 Lyon, right?
I think so. Maybe I'm mistaken, and just to make clear, to be 100% clear, because many Barca fans on Twitter don't appreciate how I analyze the games, because eventually football is just a game where you just give your opinion, and you grow up loving a team, or you grow up loving a certain type of football. For me, I believe that even if Barca have been playing on top in the last 3-4 years, you can't put aside Lyon's greatness in the Champions League. You can't put aside their experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you look at it, this might be the first ever win with Michel Kang as the new president. And maybe Delphine Cascarino leaving, maybe Sonia Bonpastor leaving, maybe Selma Basha, because we have a lot of players who are out of contract in June. So there are a lot of factors in this match, but that's my prediction. And if I may add something, if you check the bets for the game, Barca has I don't know how to say it in English, but has a quote of 1.5. Lyon has a quote of 6. So I don't know who's the person who put this, but if you think Lyon are this bad compared to Barca, but you're mistaken. I don't think it's this easy for Barca. It shocked me today. A friend sent it to me. He told me that it's times 6 for Lyon. Are they out of their minds? So I think that people shouldn't underestimate Lyon, because even if Barca are putting in the money and the money and investment, Olympique Lyonnais know how to win these finals.
We looked at the number after the semifinals as well, just to kind of see where it was at. And on the show, I think we're both pretty shocked about the disparity, because totally agree with you
Yeah.
that this definitely feels like a coin flip. And I'm also glad you brought up the notion of the bench, because I think against PSG, that was also a huge differentiator. And if you think back to the Barcelona match against Chelsea, they're going to like Vicky Lopez and Alexia still working away. Like they really felt like things were a little bit not quite desperate, because obviously like all these players are excellent players, but it didn't feel part of a broader strategy. It was just like,
Yeah.
we're kind of scrambling here. Even though it was the first leg, it didn't really matter if they scored, but they were in definite scramble mode. And I think Lyon, the total opposite. Cool as you like, they bring on players, they know what they're doing, and they look like the perfect change of pace for that moment. And you could just see in the instance of PSG, them kind of struggling to keep up and adapt, especially thinking about that first matchup where, the subs really, Majri coming on obviously was absolute game breaker. So I think the bench, especially in an extra time kind of game, could absolutely be the difference. I'm glad you brought that up.
As you said, Dino, if you look at the OL bench, Zanifar Marozan plays as a starter for any team in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they tell you that she's slow now, she's lost endurance, but she's the best. After Marta, she's the best technically in the world. You have Amel Majri, who's usually rotating, but she's on the bench. You have Vicky Besho. You used to have Eugénie Le Sommer, but she's injured. And you have, I don't want to swear, but you have Ada Hegerberg on the bench. So if Messi de Mornay isn't playing the game of her life, you can just bring in a Ballon d'Or player, the top scorer in the history of the competition, and put her as a 9. It's insane to look at the deep depth in the Lyon squad.
I love it. I totally agree. And when you talk about juice in the legs, I mean, I feel like if you look up juice in the legs in the dictionary, there might be a picture of Vicky Beccio there, of just somebody who's just going to come on and just be an instant spark plug for it and change the shape of an entire defense in stretches. It's well documented on this show. Vicky Beccio is one of my favorite young players in the world. I'm very eager to see if she plays a role in this one.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else we want to hit before we get out of here?
It's not giving you an advice or something, but just keep an eye on one player for the future. I think she's able to literally become the best ever and like dominate football for 2, 3, 4 years up front. Her name is Liana Joseph. She's with Olympique Lyonnais. She's a winger, but also plays as a 9 or also as a fake 9. She's insane. Last year in the under-19 final against PSG, she scored 5 goals because she's simply unstoppable. You can mix Dumornay with Vicky Besho with I don't know another player, and you just have Liana Joseph. So for the non-followers of French football who usually just watch occasionally, keep an eye on this player. I think she's 17 years old or 18 years old. She's already played with Lyon in one match. She scored, and I think next year she might get more minutes than usual.
All right, awesome. That is great insight. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Very cool. We will keep an eye on Liana, and she's French also, right? So potential for the national team as well. Very cool.
Surely.
Awesome. All right, team. I think we did it. I think we successfully previewed this UEFA Women's Champions League final. And as a reminder, Grant and I will be going live after the match. Asil, you're free to stop by. You have the link now. In case you want to pop in, but we'll be live streaming. Open invitation anytime you want to come join the show. We will be live after the match, just breaking it down, and like I said, trying to put the pieces of our brain back together after watching what's going to be an absolute massive clash. Thank you for watching, listening, subscribing, just plain hanging out with your Into the Channel squad, breaking down this final. Remember, like if you liked, subscribe or follow Into the Channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen, at ITC_pod on X. Assile Toufaily, thank you for joining us and helping us out with this preview. Like Grant mentioned, you are always welcome on the show.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you so much for your time. And this is something I always say. And sometimes people tell me that it's kind of banal to say, like I just stop saying. But thank you for being allies of women's football, because this is how it grows. We have to just keep shedding light on it, and it's not just me who should do it. It's not just the players who should do it. Just random fans or random followers from all over the world, because maybe Dino will let people around him be more interested in the game, or maybe Grant's I don't know, kids in the future, or maybe cousins, or maybe the whole family would be interested in women's football. This is how it grows, and so thank you so much for what of everything you're doing.
We really appreciate the kind words, Asil. Thank you for making some space for us to kind of join in, because women's football fans internationally here in the U.S. are just, I'll just say it, much cooler than most of the sports fans that we have encountered in traditional men's sports growing up. So we appreciate you guys even kind of letting us in the tent, and yeah, we're happy to talk the game with anybody anytime.
Yeah, we're kind of doing the easy part. We're doing the easy fun part.
Yeah, we've kind of walked in later in the game when things are more established, and we're like, "Oh, hey, this is cool. You know, what's going on, everybody?" So yeah,
let's hop in.
She's good. And big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grant Engel, for just being in championship mode, man. I appreciate you.
Likewise, buddy. Again, Asil, thank you for joining us. Barcelona fans, you've razzed me on Twitter a few times and in the YouTube comments. Take it easy on me and Asil for our predictions, and we will see you guys after the final.